Okay, I wanted to do another explainer video about my thoughts about art and fashion and the music business. Now, I've mentioned that folk music is kind of the genre that I live in. I've also done a video on that, and in that video said that it's really sort of historical popular music that interests me, and the sort of folk side of it is more of a modern invention, which I'm sort of okay with, but it's not particularly what interests me. I'm interested in popular music, specifically. And I'd spend a lot of time exploring popular music from the past, but I'm also interested in popular music from the present. And one of the things that I feel like, something I've been very confused with, and I feel like a lot of musicians have this confusion, is feeling very out of step with what it seems like music tastes are around me, and particularly in the music business. How am I going to come into this? Okay, let me put it this way. I feel like it's helpful to think of art music and fashion music. Music where the art is the primary thing, and fashion can be a part of it too. And music where fashion is the primary thing, and art can be a part of it too. This is helpful when you start looking at the music industry, because as far as I'm concerned, the music industry, particularly in the UK, is a fashion business that thinks it's an art business, and it drives me nuts. Because I like fashion, and I like fashion music. I like sort of artists for whom it's much more, and I'll explain a bit more what I mean, because I can appreciate it's kind of a loaded term, but I like me a bit of fashion. But I mention this because I want to say about how I'm interested more in art music than in fashion music, and the way that I've set that up makes me sound like I'm better than the fashion music thing. I want to be clear, fashion music is arguably more difficult to do than what I consider to be art music. Like I would think of David Bowie as a great fashion music guy. Like, he did some music that you could clearly call art, but I think he was always more interested in fashion. What I mean by fashion is it's music that's about the moment, and that's crucially about being cool. You know, David Bowie, when he peaked, was just, you know, was everything. He was certainly in England, he was like he was the coolest guy. And he was the man is usually a man, and I'll get to that in a second, who everyone aspires to be like. And that can be really fun. Like, I grew up and sort of really got into music in the 90s, in the Britpop era. That was all about fashion. And it was great fun. I was at university in Liverpool, and just when all this stuff was kicking off, and yeah, I had a good time with it. I did get sick of it eventually. I mean, Britpop wore itself out. And I can remember the specific point when I got sick of it, when I was watching late night TV and I saw an interview with somebody who I consider to be a great example of art music, Suzanne Vega. And she was talking about her song Luca, which is a song about child abuse. And you wouldn't know, there's actually a gag in The Simpsons where Homer is driving along singing, "My name is Luca," and clearly the joke is he doesn't realize it's this dark song. But it's also a really empathetic song. It's a song sort of that's just about empathy. It's one of the reasons I think why Tom Waits is my big hero, is that empathy is, for all his sort of macho exterior, clearly empathy and compassion are the excuse me, the things he's most interested in. I need a cough sweet. Oh, sorry about that. Oh. They tell you that when you have kids, you get sick all the time. They're not wrong. Don't have kids. They're just little petri dishes of disease. I want to be clear. This is like a theory that I use to help make sense of the musical landscape. That it's a spectrum. Like, there's no one that's really on any kind of extreme end. There's a lot of overlap. And again, I'm using fashion to describe something I think is fun, glamorous, exciting. That is if I live to the end of this video, excuse me. Bollocks. It's in my lungs, damn it. Anyway, but it's been important for me because it's made me feel more comfortable about not really dealing with the music business, because I do feel like the music business, as I say, is like mainly focused on fashion. I'm not even that focused on that. Seriously, I might die. This is drama, though. Tell me this isn't content. Content. I'm going to talk about content. I was actually going to save this for the end, but I'll mention this now. One of the things that I hear a lot is people talking about how terrible content is. How there's art and there's content, and content is bad. Everything's getting flattened into content. I feel like it's much more useful to see content. What content means is just a very neutral umbrella term. This is content. If you go on Spotify and you listen to Johann Sebastian Bach, that's content. Technically, it's Spotify, it's content. You see a great documentary, you see a great movie. Those things are technically... If you are consuming them digitally, then they're all treated kind of in the same way, and it can be useful to describe that as content. Content is not necessarily good or bad. It depends on what it is. But as I say, it makes sense that it's an umbrella term. And if you want to make a living doing art, it's worth coming to terms with that, because there isn't money in making like traditional music. But there is money. You can pay the bills doing content. If you can turn that into content, oh, what a horrific idea. Yeah, it's a horrific idea. I've worked a lot of shit jobs in my life. It's a lot better than that, all right? That's my hot and spicy take. Anyway, art music and fashion music. Fashion music for me feels like inherently competitive and exclusive. And again, it's about cool and it's about kind of one-upmanship. And that's not terrible. Like a lot of sport is based on that. What I think of as art music is compassionate, inclusive. It's kind of welcoming you in. Another good example of someone who I think is really good kind of... pretty much all the kind of art musicians I'm thinking of are kind of not cool by definition, but Bill Withers. Oh dear, I didn't realise saying Bill Withers' name was like Voldemort and you choked to death. Bill Withers, author of Lean On Me, one of my favourite songs. Lovely Day, these kinds of things. Often these musicians are writing deceptively simple songs. And then you know what? There's another crucial aspect of what I consider to be art and art music that I haven't mentioned. I've got like 9 different definitions of what I consider to be art, one of which is entertainment, but more so. And that's quite an important thing because I think a lot of people feel that art is very different from entertainment. Entertainment is enjoyable. Art is like difficult. You have to work through it. You know, it's like kind of badly cooked vegetables. I don't think so. I think it's like entertainment, but it just moves you in a deeper way. But really, I've come to think of art and art. Well, art for me is actually, it's entertainment made by an artist. Like the artist is the key thing, which is why I think generative AI is not going to replace the need for artists. Because when I look for artists, what I'm looking for is someone with a fresh take, someone with a new perspective, someone who sees the world in a new and interesting way. Someone who has an interesting philosophy. And philosophy is a grand word, but it can just be someone who's got like little ideas about, oh yeah, this is how I live my life. I've had these problems. Here's how I solve them. I like these aesthetics. I don't like that aesthetic. You know, that's what I find interesting, like a fresh take. So, and I do feel that's kind of at odds with fashion. Fashion is not about having a unique perspective. Fashion is about playing the game, competing and winning. And part of it is you do have a unique style, but it's not necessarily, in fact, it's very unlikely to reflect who you are as a person. It's much more to do with your skills at playing the game. And as I say, the game can be fun. So I don't want to kind of shit on that, but that's where I'm kind of coming from on that. Yeah, so this is the reason why I'm much more interested in being on YouTube and being part of what feels like the conversation there rather than the music business. If you want to do the fashion stuff, still don't go with the music business. The music business is terrible, and I know I'm not the first person to say that. And I know people in the music business, and they're perfectly lovely to talk to. It's just that. It's such a monopoly culture. Every time... I mean, even today I'm feeling a little bit more positive about the music business. And I sort of feel like I should stop going on about it. Like, they're fine. It's a business. What do you expect? Every time I encounter them firsthand, I'm like, oh, it's so much worse than I remembered. I'll give you an example. Like, I'm not the first person to talk about the idea of music. The music business is about selling shovels. It's this idea of, in a gold rush, don't hunt for gold, sell shovels. And that kind of makes sense. I think lots of people think that the music business is full of people who only care about money and are just out to scam you. And I don't actually think that's true. There are grifters outside the music business who are posing as being inside, and they might be. What I feel the problem with the music industry when I interact with it, because I'm not like part of it, is that every interaction, whoever it is I'm dealing with, always feels like they hold all the cards and I hold none. And I've worked in a lot of different sectors, and this is unique to the music business. You kind of see it in other industries where it does seem like there's monopolies and cartels, but it's a particularly music business thing. And the example I think of is like, if it's a shovel selling business, every once in a while, like I might want to buy a shovel. So I might go to the music business and say, I would like to buy a shovel, please. And they'll look me up and down and they'll say, well, okay, that will be £1 million, billion, trillion pounds as an initial down payment. And then it's £1 million per month until you die. And we might give you the shovel or we might not, depending on how we feel. And my response is, that's insane. I don't understand how you make a living. Like, why? I want to come here and want to give you money. Do you not sell shovels? What's going on? But when I'm talking to the person, I've already lost their attention because they've turned to the person next to them and high-fiving them like, that was smoothly handled. We're so good at business. We're so good at business. And it's just kind of baffling. But then again, I remember, like, music business makes its money from Led Zeppelin and Bob Marley and all the rights forever. They don't need to, they kind of need to have a little bit more current interest, but they can still make money from their huge catalogs. So I get frustrated because I do. Maybe I'll just end with this. And I'm aware that to a certain extent making this video is kind of burning bridges, but I think I've actually burnt those bridges a long time ago. I do keep coming back to, when I think about the business, I keep coming back to Wendy and Lisa. Wendy and Lisa were two members of Prince's band, The New Revolution. They were crucial part of the band. They co-wrote songs, they helped produce, they performed on stage, they're in Purple Rain. They were like well-known figures, Wendy and Lisa. And I saw a documentary on them not too long ago. Excuse the bad language, although I do a lot of it. And they said in this documentary that there was a point where it looked like, Prince got a new band, and there was the assumption that Wendy and Lisa would go on to become artists in their own right. And the label tried to make that happen, but Wendy and Lisa turned out to be kind of quirky and more sort of oriented to a female fan base. And the label were like, no, come on, you need to be more fuckable. This was the expression they said, like, you need to kind of be more sexualized. If you're not, and I think the documentary says that the A&R person said, look, if you don't make yourself more fuckable, I don't know what to do with you. And it just made me think, well, then give me your job. Like, all the hard work has been done. Prince has made these people stars already. They're already, like, kind of household names. You just need to get them to write songs, find out what their personality is, and then just kind of lean with that. This is just the lowest hanging fruit in music. But it's like, well, if I don't want to fuck you, I don't know what to do. And for me, that's a vibe I've come across with the music business so much. You know what? There's something else I'm going to add. This whole thing of art music and fashion music, you may have noticed by the way I'm talking, I do really think is quite gendered. Generally speaking, sorry boys, you're not going to like this, but generally speaking, men make fashion music. Men are obsessed with being cool. Men are obsessed with the hierarchy. Women, generally speaking, there is a lot of overlap, make the art music. And a good example, I think, is the number of really wildly creative people. At the moment, I think Little Sims, but also Missy Elliott, Björk, PJ Harvey. I would include Billie Eilish in that bracket. If sort of male counterparts were that experimental, the boys would lose their minds. They'd be like, this person's a genius. But because they're female, they're just not seen as in the same game and not seen as relevant. And to a certain extent, that might mean they've got more freedom to just really kind of play around. I remember a I think, a GQ article in the 90s where Tom York was just made OK Computer and was being interviewed and said, we're all just chasing Björk, really. Björk is just way out ahead of us, doing all the more interesting stuff. And no one remembers that now. So, yeah, art music, fashion music. I wanted to have an explainer video so I could just splurge here and not waste your time in the process videos. So, thank you for allowing me to waste your time now.